whatever. There we go. Now it's working. So anyways, back to thanking your publisher. So thank you to Amy and to everybody out at your publisher for allowing us to host you on pub night. I mean, this is huge. This is gigantic.
It really is.
It's gigantic. So wait, I gotta hold mine up. And I was showing Chris earlier to those people, this is the advanced copy. Warwick's, I wasn't lying. We have like 3 quotes in here in the advanced copy. So we have a lot of love for this book here at Warwick. So ways for you who are watching on Facebook to participate tonight. I'll be bouncing out into the background in a little bit in the chat function. If you have any questions for Chris, go ahead and put those into the chat. Jennifer and Chris are going to chat for about 30-ish, 35 minutes, and then I'll be back on screen and bring those to you. I also put in a link to Chris's book there. Click on that. If you want to come by and pick up the book from us directly, do that, or we can ship it to you. I understand our shipping's pretty good and we're getting things out to people pretty quickly. So that's always a good option to do. Although Chris is joining us from kind of far away tonight in England. Yep. And so unfortunately we don't, if any of your friends are watching, we can't ship there, but anybody in the US will ship to. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce Jennifer really quickly. So Jennifer Thompson is a personal branding expert, digital marketing strategist, and host of the Premise podcast. She is an author and speaker who delivers strategy-rich content and actionable tools that educate and empower authors. She and her husband, Chad, co-founded Monkey See Media in 2004 and have been creating award-winning book cover designs and author websites ever since. Jennifer is a co-founder of the San Diego Writers Festival. She serves on the board of the San Diego San Diego Memoir Writers Association, and is currently writing her own coming of age memoir. So with that, you two have a great conversation. I'll pop back on in about a half hour.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here with Chris. As I said before in our green room, so to speak, this is an incredible book. Absolutely loved it. And I'm excited to talk about it. Before that, I will introduce you, Chris. Chris Whitaker is the author of Tall Oaks and All the Wicked Girls. And his most recent work, We Begin at the End, which was published in the UK last year. It's now available today here in the United States, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. Chris lives in the United Kingdom with his wife and 3 young children. When not writing, he works part-time at a local library, where I understand you get to be surrounded by books. Sounds kind of awesome.
It is. I think it's my favorite job that I've ever had. I really love
I'm
it.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would have a hard time paying attention, you know?
I do.
And
and I just like to grab every book that I see. You know, anything that looks halfway interesting ends up coming home with me. So yeah.
I was going to say, do you have like a stack to bring home and read somewhere?
I do. And then I get sent loads as well. So it's just like, oh, they're everywhere. My wife goes crazy.
Books everywhere. That's awesome. Is your wife a big reader?
She was before the baby came along. She's big on sitting awake all night while the baby cries. Yeah.
And so your baby, you had a baby in April? Is that right? I don't. How old is your baby
now? July. Yeah.
July,
so she's 7 months. So yeah, 2 teeth have appeared yesterday, which is great timing, just as I head into this. So we were awake all of last night. But
yeah. Wow. Well, you look great. You don't look exhausted by teething.
I'm dying inside though. So.
Well, we won't torture you too much.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about We Begin at the End. It follows a convict named Vincent King, who's released from prison 30 years after being convicted for killing a 7-year-old girl, and the connection he has with the victim's 13-year-old niece, Duchess Day Radley, and the chief of police in a small California town, Vincent's former best friend, whose testimony helped send Vincent to prison. This is a gripping novel. My first question is, where did this story come from? How did it come to you?
Right, there's kind of so how it came to me is also how I got into writing, and it's kind of a strange journey. So I'm going to take you all the way back to when I was a teenager, which wasn't that long ago, Jennifer. Was it? Right,
Go on.
So I was messed up at school. Didn't do well in my exams. I wasn't that great at school. I just didn't concentrate. I didn't have I didn't think about writing at all, didn't think about writing as a career. I was a big reader though, ever since I was a kid. But I went out the night before my economics exam and got really drunk and then missed the exam the next day. So I just totally missed it. So I failed and couldn't go to university, which was okay because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. You know, I had friends that wanted to be doctors and lawyers and things like that. And I was just one of those people that had no idea, you know, and you kind of at that age, you have to choose, don't you, what you're going to be for the rest of your life. And it felt like too big of a decision. So I kind of just bounced around from job to job. Worked in a bakery, which I loved, worked in a supermarket, worked in loads of bars. I did loads of bartending, also loved those jobs. And I was working as a real estate agent. And I was out dropping leaflets through people's doors and got mugged. Someone came up to me and asked to borrow my phone. And you kind of know how it's going to go when that happens because it's a strange request. And I said no. And then we kind of got into a fight. And he pulled out a kitchen knife and stabbed me a few times in the side and dropped the knife. I dropped the phone. He picked up both and ran off. And I got myself to the hospital and they stitched me back together again. And so kind of all I had was some scars that I've still got now, that I like to make up, you know, stories to my kids when they see them about what happened, you know, like bitten by a shark and things like that, wrestled a bear, really cool things like that. Yeah, but I so I was patched back together again, but emotionally it was really difficult. I didn't know about PTSD and things like that. And I just didn't feel able to talk to anyone about it. My friends were the kind of friends that just slap you on the back, you know, did the right thing.
Oh, you'll be okay.
Yeah, my dad was a bit like that, although he denies it now, but he was a bit like that. He was a bit like, you know, I'm proud of you. You kind of stood your ground. You know, I would tell my kids, I've got 2 sons and a daughter, I would tell all of them to run away, you know, give them whatever they want and run away. And then everything kind of went wrong for me at that point. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating, couldn't concentrate on anything, couldn't read a book, couldn't watch TV. I went out running and would run so far that I'd have to get a bus back home. It was like, I felt really lost at the time. And remember looking in a mirror and just, you know, when you don't recognize yourself or you don't want to be the person staring back at you, that's probably the best way to put it. I felt like that. And things got really bad and I still didn't tell anyone, and I started hoarding painkillers. And I thought I'm going to, you know, do something drastic. And I sat down to write my parents a note, just kind of to explain what had happened. And I remembered I'd got a book from the library about, you know, therapies and things you can do at home. And one of them was a writing therapy. And you take the incident, the traumatic incident, and you change everything about it, you know, from the characters involved to where it happened to the outcome, and you turn it into kind of fiction. And I gave it a go. And I wrote Duchess. I sat down and wrote the character of Duchess 20 years ago.
Wow.
And so she kind of appeared on the page fully formed. And I had this really strong, vivid image of this girl, you know, wearing clothes that didn't fit her and being bullied, and she has this name that's kind of difficult to pull off. And I kind of, the more I wrote, the better I felt. And so I probably spent a few months, you know, just writing a little bit, and it wasn't really a story, it was kind of disjointed, just bits of, you know, paragraphs that didn't run together or anything like that. But I was kind of projecting, you know, however I felt at the time, I would give those feelings to Duchess, you know. So if I was angry, she'd be full of rage, and it really helped. And kind of a year after that, I read an article about a stockbroker, and I saw this picture in the paper, and he had a Ferrari, and he had this amazing life, and I thought, that's what I'm going to do, which is ridiculous because I'm not good at maths. I messed up at school. My CV was terrible, but I marched into the city, into London, and managed to get a job, like an entry-level job, and work my way up. And things were okay. So I didn't write. I'd stopped writing by then. I'd kind of forgotten about it, just thought it was, you know, just something I needed at the time, and I don't anymore, and I felt okay. And then I got a job on a trading desk, and my boss said to me on the first day, he said, if you lose $20,000, you stop trading. And then we talk about what went wrong. And so I came in on my first day and lost $2 million. And yeah, and didn't tell anyone. And I had a friend that worked in the back office. So I said to him, you know, keep it quiet and I'll make it back, which is ridiculous because I didn't know what I was doing. So I lost a bit more. And then I came into work one morning, and everyone was waiting for me, sitting around the boardroom table, you know, all the bosses, there were some lawyers there. And, you know, I sat down and they said, we know what's happened. You know, we can either go to the police or you can sign something and pay us back half of it. We'll let you carry on trading, because I'd started making money again at that point. So I signed it and went home with $1 million of debt, and I was 24 and I was engaged at the time. I didn't tell my now wife, just because she thought I was really successful and my parents thought I was doing really well, and I liked how they saw me. And really, I'd really badly screwed up. And the wedding costs were spiraling because she didn't know we'd had any problems, you know, money problems or anything like that. So I went back to writing Duchess again, you know, because I felt out of control.
She's your fallback.
Yeah,
yeah,
she was. She was, someone I could talk to and someone I could share things with that I couldn't with anyone else. So she got me through that time, you know, and her story started to evolve, you know, as mine did. And I got to nearly 30 and I paid the debt off, worked really hard, you know, worked
which is
every
shocking.
hour. Yeah.
You know, wow.
I know. So I then my boss called me in to his office and offered me a promotion. And I had, a few weeks ago, I'd read a book called The Last Child by John Hart, which I loved. It's this amazing, amazing book, you know, crime story. It's so good. And I read an interview with John Hart, and he talks about how he was a successful lawyer and he just quit to write a book. So I quit there and then, my job. My wife was pregnant at the time and a student. So, you know, I came home that day and said, oh, I'm going to be a writer. I've quit my job. And she was like, she knew nothing. I'd never written anything, you know, as far as she knew. So it was another crazy kind of decision. And she slowly learned to love me again. But we sold our flat, our apartment and car, and moved away. And I got working on my debut novel, Tall Oaks. And yeah, and then wrote another one. And then I wasn't going to write We Begin at the end. I just thought I'll keep it, you know, I won't share it. And it felt unfinished. And I kept going back to it, and I kept thinking, you know, this is too difficult. So I told my editor I was writing something, and then I kept emailing her and saying, I can't finish it. It's not going to happen. This went on for years. And then I got together with Amy Einhorn, and she made it into a book. And yeah, and there was still a few years worth of work that we've done on the book to get it, you know, to get it to this.
And who is Amy? Is Amy your editor?
Amy is my editor. Yeah, no, she's my editor at Henry Holt. Yeah, and she, she's been amazing. The whole team have, and they've kind of helped me through it. And now there's a finished book.
Did it feel like it was too personal? Like Duchess was too much of you? That sharing that maybe was too hard?
Yeah, it does. And it's really strange because you're reading a book about a 13-year-old girl, you know,
right.
set in America, set in Montana and California, places I've never been to.
Yeah.
A long, long way away from my life. But yet to me, it feels really personal, which is strange. Because it's not like autobiographical or anything like that. It's just, you know, a year in the life of this girl and this policeman, and kind of a book about family and past mistakes and how you can outrun them. And yeah, and it's that, but it does feel that way, and it did for a long time. And I think that's partly why I couldn't finish it, and partly why, you know, I didn't ever think about sharing it.
You know, I was going to ask you why a 13-year-old girl, but I'm going to change that question now.
Mhm.
Do you think maybe it allowed you to let her be flawed in a more fantastic way because she was so young, that maybe it was just when we reach into who we are as children, we're able to tap into something that adults don't have anymore, right? It's like it
Yeah.
gives you almost permission.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it did feel like that. And she, you know, it's an emotive thing, isn't it? When you see a child struggling, when you see anyone struggling, you know, my instinct is that people are good and they want to help and do the right thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I choose to see everyone. And especially when it's a child, you know, it stirs up a lot of feelings. But I liked that I wrote her as this, you know, you would just write her off. You know, she's the sole carer to a younger brother. Her mum's an addict. You know, she's been written off before she's even 13, you know. As a child, she's had no real childhood. And she's really tough, you know, and really strong. And she has this inner strength that I wanted, you know, that I couldn't find for a long time. And I think it's an admirable quality. And she, yeah, she's tough, and she makes these terrible decisions throughout the book, you know, and she swears, she curses all the time, and she's quite hard to
Mm-hmm.
love. And I've had readers message me over here because they really don't like her. They really, yeah,
Really?
and they're just like, yeah, but then they're rooting for her at the end. You know,
Of
they're like,
course. Yeah.
yeah, we need her to get the ending that she deserves, but I
Yeah.
can't. You know, she's too hard to love. She's too difficult. You know, a person.
I felt like Robin was sort of the humanity, like the character Robin allows a window into who Duchess really is. She would never show the world, you know, because she's tough and she's an outlaw and, you know, she swears and she's mean and nasty, but really Robin allows us to see who she is at her core, that she's really good.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly
Was
right. Yeah, and it's yeah, I always think that when I was writing her, I was like, you know, she's so tough and she's so adult in a lot of ways.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you get these glimpses, these glimmers of the girl she could still be, you know, or could have been had she had a different life, you know. So
Mhm.
you get a scene where she's broken a bottle and she's holding the glass to someone's throat, you know, because
Mhm.
they've called her mum a name. And then you
Yeah.
get another scene where she's getting ready for her first prom and she's really nervous and vulnerable. And I think it's those kind of scenes that keep you rooting for her.
Yeah, and keep us moving forward. You know, I mean, it's interesting. You know, I've heard a lot of people talk about this book as sort of bending genres
Mhm.
because it's a mystery. You know, it's a crime book on the one hand,
Yeah.
but it's really a coming of age story. It's about humanity. It's about being human. It's about how life is unfair, and there. What really captured me too, and I have to tell you this and thank you, is the writing. The writing was so good. You know, there's moments of sweeping, beautiful sentences that just capture you and draw you in. And then there are these short, gritty sentences that like slap you in the face and like they're jarring and abrupt, but yet you have so much humor too that sort of softens those edges and
Mhm.
allows you to get through the book, right? So I appreciate your writing. That's more of a comment than a question.
No, that's a nice that's the nice compliment. And I'm unaware of it a lot of the time, you know, when I'm writing, how I'm changing it up kind of. I don't see
Mm.
it until it's pointed. And I splice commas all the time, which drives the editorial team mad. They're like the proofreader, they try and they try and correct me. And I know I should be corrected, but it just doesn't, it needs to read a certain way in my mind, you know, and
Yeah.
that might not be
Yeah.
strictly correct, but
But
it's
that's their job. That's they go
yeah,
back and fix it. We don't have to worry about that part, right? You
no,
just write the characters and bring us along. I want to talk about Cape Haven. So this small town in California, and I live in California. And I'm also from Washington State up near Idaho and spent a lot of time in Montana. So two places that are dear to my heart.
yeah,
I felt like Cape Haven was a town that you had taken out of the Midwest and
mhm,
dropped it on the West Coast and then added East Coast sensibility. It was like everywhere and nowhere USA.
yeah,
Was that on purpose or was it
yeah,
just because you go ahead? Yeah.
yeah. No, it was. what I wanted to write this town that was perfect 30 years ago, you know, that was, and now it's, because Walk, the police chief in the book, is sick, you know, I say that without giving anything away. And he was happiest when he was 15, you know, and he clings on to this 15-year-old version of himself. And the town is on the coast and it's slowly being eroded by the water. So every now and then a part of the town, or a house that he knew when he was a kid, just drops into the sea. And it kind of mirrors what's going on with him, you know, in his personal life. And he's never really moved on from that time. And he needs, so every time someone applies to build something, you know, like a zoning application or something, he will block it and try his hardest to block it, because he needs to preserve this time, the only real time when he was happy. And that time, you know, there's a short few pages at the start of the book that detail the death of a child, and that is kind of why the book's called We Begin at the End, and because that is the end for Walk, and it's the end for a lot of the characters in that story. You know, they can never really get past it. And it's the same is true for Duchess as well. She's got this massive shadow cast over her life, and it was cast long before she was born, and she can't really outrun it.
Yeah. I wonder, you know, I loved that analogy of the cliff. It really did feel like it was Walk's life. He's trying to preserve this town, as you say, and yet it's slipping. It's slipping from him, and there's nothing he can do about it. Was that your intention from the very beginning? Was that something that was organic as you were writing, that you thought, oh, I have an idea, I'll have the cliff slipping into the ocean, just like Walk's life? Or, you know, how did that come to be?
No, I'm terrible at planning. Like, I don't, I know, you know, I'm the worst planner. So I will have my characters, and I'll know how I knew how the story was going to end from the very beginning. I knew how it would end. And how I get between the 2 points is up for grabs as I go along. And it's why it takes so long, I think. I have author friends that are very good at planning, you know, and they sit down and they map out a book, and they know exactly what's coming in every scene, and they know exactly how long it's going to take them to write, and they can deliver a book a year to their publisher, which publishers like. And I'm the complete opposite. And I wonder, because a lot of them have done courses like creative writing courses and things like that, and I wonder if that's a skill you can learn, because I think it's really valuable. But I also
but I don't have it, he says. But it happened anyway.
Yeah, it did, but it just is, it's very long and very difficult to get.
Well, let me ask you this. Were the cliffs already there, and then you said to yourself, oh my God, this is sort of an analogy for who Walk is? Like, was it happening without you realizing it, or did you add it later?
No, it happened without me realizing. So I had this town, and I liked the idea of it slipping away from everyone that loved it, you know, and then losing it. And it gets to a point. I mean, you're a writer, you get to a point, hopefully, where things click. Or where something comes together, and it can be really late in the day, you know, it can be after years and years of work, and it can be after you get help from the best editors in the business and things like that. But you keep the faith, and it comes together, and hopefully you tell a story that people like. You know, that's the best I ever hope for.
Right. Can you talk about your writing process?
Yeah, so it begins. I write across 3 screens. So I have 3 big screens, and I map out every scene before I write it. So I'll do a ton of research at the library normally. Like, I'll look at maps and travel guides and non-fiction, things like that, just to get a sense of the scene I'm going to write. And then I'll have a ton of pictures up on all the screens, you know, so that I can kind of see what the characters are going to see. And then it's exhausting, isn't it? I can see by your face.
I'm really impressed. I'm like, holy wow.
Yeah, so I do all of that before, and then I work on the dialogue probably for a month or so, you know, for any given chapter or something, and then I pull it together, and then I write it, then I delete it, and then I do it again and again and again. Yeah, until I've driven myself insane.
You're the kind of person who puts a lot of pressure on yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, my wife always says that. I lie awake at night and worry about things, like a sentence that bothers me, or is this, because if it's not the absolute best that I can do, then it should, I shouldn't waste anyone's time with it. That's how I see it. I need to, give everything to it, because people are going out and spending their money on it as well, which I'm so grateful for. And just growing up, I used to go to the library all the time, and now I work in a library and I get to shelve my book in the library, and it's something that is never lost on me. It feels like this huge privilege, and I want to make the most of it, and I don't want to let anyone down, and I want people to know how hard I tried.
Well, it's a beautiful book. So it's
Thank you.
if you had told me that I just sat down and wrote it and it was easy, I would be very angry at you. There has to be some effort in something so beautiful. Talk to us about how you broke into the publishing industry, and how did you find your agent? How did you?
Yeah, so I didn't know that you needed an agent. I didn't know anything about it when I quit my job and decided to become a writer. I just we moved to Spain because I'd left the city and we'd sold up and everything. We had a chance to go somewhere else, and the cost of living was less, and we wanted to live by the sea for a while. So we went to Spain, and I got to work on Tall Oaks, wrote it. And then I started to research that, that you actually need an agent. I didn't know that at the time. And I didn't know how tough it was as well. The odds of getting an agent, they're stacked, aren't they? They get hundreds and hundreds of submissions every month and sign a handful of writers a year. And I had nothing to put on my cover letter, because I went on this website, and it's like a guide, telling you what to put on, tell them about the courses you've done, tell them. And I was like, oh God, I was the trader in the city, and now I've written a book. And that's what I put on my cover letter. And I pitched it as a YA book, which it isn't. It's an adult book. I just got it all wrong. Millions of mistakes I made. And then I don't know how, but I got some agent offers. And we went back to London, and I met with a load of agents, and then signed with WME in London, and then followed my agent, who's now with Curtis Brown. So I'm still with the same agent all these years later. She's kind of put up with me for all these years.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, stuck by me. And then we went out on submission, and yeah, it was just, I always wonder about it, because I just think sometimes you need to land on the right desk at the right time, don't you? You just catch someone, because there's so many reasons that, it's so subjective. And I love that about books. I love, when I'm in the library, I love that there is the perfect reader for every one of those books. And I love that I read a review recently of Tall Oaks, and someone had given it 1 star. And he said, I can't believe this is the same author that wrote We Begin at the End. And I just thought it was great. I don't mind it. I just think, there is a book for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that you are with the same agent too. Did you ever ask her, what made you pick up my letter? What was it about it that made her call you, I wonder?
Yeah, so it was often the agent's assistant is the gatekeeper. That's what I've discovered. So it was
that's true, yes.
my agent's assistant, Siobhan, who is amazing. She really liked the story, and then I did the thing where where you get an offer and then you email the agents who have got it and just say, I'm just making you aware I've got an offer. And I think that works really well, because then if someone else wants you, they want you. But
was that true? You did get an offer.
Yes, yeah. I had 6 offers from 6 different agents. And
did you research them? Did you say, okay, I want these agents, and you really did your homework on that? I'm going to guess you did.
Yeah, because I read a lot. So I chose books that I really loved, and books that might be, because Tall Oaks is kind of a crime book, but it's not really. It's just a book about a town in California, and it's set 3 months after a child goes missing, and it's just about all the different characters. You've got a couple that are struggling with divorce, a boy struggling with his dad walking out and things like that, and they're all connected in some way to this crime, but it's not overtly a crime book. And
I love
my
that.
agent, my agent that I signed with, she represented some books, that might not fit into certain genres, and I thought she would be great, and she was brilliant. And we,
Nice.
her office was being refurbished or something at the time, so we met in this old coffee shop in London, and we still talk about it now, and now it feels like we've come
That's
a hell of a
awesome.
long way. Yeah.
Wow.
It's really cool, actually.
Well, it's really cool. And
Mm.
today I read on Twitter that We Begin at the End has been optioned for a TV series that Disney has picked it up.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
It's,
awesome.
it's
What
been
a day, huh?
what a day. I know. It's been, it still hasn't sunk in. So I knew it was coming because I was desperate to share it, but you can't say anything until it's released, and then I
Yeah.
saw it on screen, in print, and I'm going to get a copy and frame it because it's just so cool. It's just the most
That
amazing.
is awesome.
And I'm
Yeah.
so it's Tommy Cale is it's him and Jeniffer, and Tommy Cale is the director of Hamilton, and I just thought Hamilton was a masterpiece. I just thought it was so good, and we had this just a brilliant meeting, and just clicked. And I always go with my heart on everything, and gut feeling. I'm a strong believer in that, and it just felt right, and I know it was the right decision. And they're just so passionate about the story, which is lovely.
That's so cool.
It
Well,
is very,
congratulations.
thank you.
I have to say one thing. I know that when your first book, Tall Oaks, as you said, is based in California, and you had said to your publisher that you felt like you needed to travel to California, and you were hoping that this would be an expense, and so you could do research, and that they had told you that your expectations were unrealistic, I believe were the words. And now here we are, your third book. You just got back from Hollywood. Your book is optioned to be a TV series. It looks like maybe your expectations weren't so unrealistic after all.
Yeah, and that no one will fly me over. Still, I keep asking.
Yeah, really.
Instead, they put me in here. But instead, they say to me, "Oh, stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and do these events." That's easier.
I think my favorite part of your story is that John Hart, who wrote the book that you said, I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to quit my brilliant job as in finance and give it all up to be a writer, to do something I know nothing about, because of this book I read by John Hart, and he's going to be interviewing you about We Begin at the End tomorrow.
I know.
I mean,
and
so cool.
And there's a John Hart quote on the book as well.
Yes, there is.
It's very cool.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, so I was
the most
full circle.
Full circle.
That is a full circle moment.
really.
I want to read it. The most compelling young protagonist I've read in at least a decade, a deep and meaningful story that is an absolute delight from first page to last. And that's from John Hart, author of 6 New York Times bestsellers. So really beautiful.
Yeah, so he knows what he's talking about. So
clearly, yeah.
Yes.
Well, Chris,
Hart.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. It's been a real honor. I love this book. I'm looking forward to recommending it to all of my friends and all of our readers in the San Diego Festival. I wish you the best of luck. And I didn't get to ask Julie, so I hope you're going to ask him what's next. I want to know what's coming.
Oh, I will. There's lots of questions that are coming from there. It's always so hard though. That's one of those hard questions, because it's like today's launch day and now we want something else from you.
Oh, and by the way, what else do you have for us? Yeah.
And by the way, what else do you have for us?
Don't relax.
Although coming from somebody who read this, I think last summer, I'm ready for something new from you, Chris. So it's been a while since I read this. So we'll ask you right now, what is next?
I'm supposed to be delivering a new book this Christmas, but I'm going to use this now in case my editor's watching, to tell her that I'm going to miss my deadline by a long, long way. No, it's a big, I've got the idea for it and I've started writing, and it's a big kind of mystery crime love story. It's another big book. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, love it.
Julie, can I squeeze in one more question?
Sure, go ahead.
As I was thinking to myself, someone is going to take your character, Duchess in particular, who Are you nervous what they're going to do with Duchess? Are you excited? I mean, that's a big deal. And especially now that I know how much Duchess is, you and connected to you. So what does it feel like to know that people write a Duchess character for the world to see?
As in Disney, you mean? Yeah, for TV. So yeah, so that's why so I had this amazing week where I was meeting lots of studios, and that's what kept me up at night, agonizing over it, who really gets it, and who's going to do the best job, and who just understands the character and why I wrote her, and yeah, no, I just have faith, and I will, they've said I can be involved, so I will
good.
use myself. Yeah. So
Yeah. That's that gut feeling you were talking about. I'm sorry, what?
They'll regret saying that, I'm sure.
Most of the time they do. They'll shove you in some back corner somewhere and go, okay, Chris, you got to go over there now. Although maybe you'll get a cameo. A lot of authors end up in some of their shows. They end up in a cameo somewhere. So
yeah. Well, I did ask if I could play Duchess. So
that's fantastic.
And they said, we'll think about it.
Yeah. What was that quote? Your expectations might be a little high on that.
Unrealistic.
Unrealistic.
Just a little
expectations. Hey, you guys talked a little bit about California, but really, I don't know if maybe I was distracted, but why California? Because it plays such a big part of it seems like your life and your books and everything. So why?
In my mind, it's, I set the stories a long way away from where I live, where my life was, where everything that happened to me happened. And when I sat down and wrote something, I needed to really get away from there. And when I was a kid, we went to Disney World with my dad, me and my brother, and it was like my best childhood memory. And so straight away I went back to the US for that. And it was funny because we were standing in line at Disney when I was a kid. There was a family in front of us from Montana, and they were telling us about Montana and how beautiful it is. And the man said it's like switching from portrait to landscape. And I never forgot that. And
you wrote that in the book.
Yeah, it makes it into the book. And I just thought it was such a great way of describing something. All of a sudden there's this expanse of space. And and that's what I needed for the story.
That's incredible.
That's awesome.
And I mean, Jeniffer, and I have to tell you, both you and Chris, it's like I said before we started, that it's like, oh, if you don't answer it, this was a fantastic interview. You guys touched on some things that were just absolutely amazing. And if I didn't love your book before, Chris, I love you and your book even more now after this interview.
Totally. I know.
I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, the interview, but we do have some questions from the audience. So, and Arlene has a long question, so bear with me. I'll do it in parts here for us. So she says, thank you, Chris, for being vulnerable and in sharing your journey. A few questions.
Yeah.
1, since you started writing as a therapeutic outlet, has your writing process evolved when you learned that it would be a published book versus keeping the writing private and personal?
That's a really good question. It hasn't, no. It's exactly the same. And I suppose I give more thought to, the deadlines and things like that. And, that I have to do something. So now I write every day, 7 days a week, even if it's just a few paragraphs or something, I will write something every day. Whereas before I only wrote when I felt like I really needed to.
Right.
And I write more now because I love it as well. Someone asked me the other day, what's the best advice you've ever been given, to do with writing? And my agent said, just, if you're not enjoying it, you're doing something wrong. And I've always carried that with me, because sometimes, when a deadline is looming and you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders and you forget why you do it, you just need to take a breath. And, I'm very lucky to get to tell stories that people read. I love it.
You have to treat it as a job, because it is a job, but you have to love the job.
Yeah.
There's that reconciling that you have to do with yourself about it.
Yeah, that's right. It's like working in a library or being a bookseller, or, you need that passion.
Right.
You know?
You have to. Okay, so to continue with Arlene's questions, and Arlene always asks fantastic questions. So the next part of her question is, what was the most challenging and inspiring parts for you in writing this?
Probably the most challenging was Duchess, just turning her into, you know, a character instead of just a series of notes and things. And of the years it took to write it, most of it was Duchess, and probably a solid year was just her dialogue, you know, going over and over and over again till it felt right, you know. And the second part of the question was the most
The inspiring, what's the most challenging and inspiring parts for you when you're writing?
inspiring is always messages from readers, you know, people that have read the book that really enjoy it, or even the people that don't enjoy it, that they feel that, you know, they reach out to me, and I like that.
Do you like it? Because I always feel like, why do people tell somebody they don't like something? It's like saying if your baby's ugly or something. It's like, why would somebody do that?
I know I've learned to be fine with it. I've got very thick skin, you know, I can take it, but because I know there is a reader out there for me, for my book, and I've just missed on this particular occasion, but they feel passionate enough about the story to contact me.
Yeah. So you reached them somehow, some way. You got a reaction.
Yeah, even if I'm just annoying them. Yeah.
That's kind of, I like to annoy people, so that's a little satisfactory too. Okay, so the third part of Arlene's question is, how did it feel when you finished the book? Do you miss the characters? How do you transition from a finished book to a new project? And she thanks you, and she can't wait to own this book and read it. So again,
Awesome.
How do you feel when you finish? Do you miss the characters and the transition?
Yeah, I struggle to finish. I never write the end ever. I just think of it in my head that this is a snapshot of their lives for 1 year. You know, they went on before, they'll go on after. Yeah, it's really difficult. And moving on to something else is, you know, I like that part where you stare at a blank page and you've got to get from there to 100,000 words, you know, and do it in a dazzling way, you know, that's going to make people feel something. Or yeah, I really enjoy that part of it, so I'm okay with it. It's the bit in the middle that I struggle with. You know? When you're halfway through and you've no idea where it's going or how you're going to get to the end, or yeah, it's tough.
Do you write yourself into corners sometimes and have to like throw away 50,000 words or something? No.
Yeah, that is my signature move. Yeah, right. Yeah, 2 or 3 books I'll write to get one. Definitely.
Well, this has been absolutely fantastic. We are so excited for you to sell this book, everything. I just can't thank everybody at Henry Holt for allowing us to do this. Jeniffer, real quick, tell us where, I believe this will end up on the Premise podcast at some point too, perhaps?
That's right. That's right. We will air this interview on The Premise. People can find us on Twitter at PodPremise, and people can follow me on Twitter at Jeniffer Grace.
Perfect. And then Chris, your Twitter handle's a little different. So there, because I looked for you and there's a lot of Chris Whitakers out there. So I'm imagining that's why.
Yeah, no, mine is Witty Author with an H, but it's not because I'm funny. It's because my nickname growing up was Witty, because my surname's Whitaker, and that's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's awesome.
Well, this has been absolutely fantastic. Again, you can order the book. It's in the chat. Go to warwicks.com. Chris and Jeniffer, this is why I love my job, for interviews like this and reading books like you wrote, and Chris. So thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Okay. Good night, everybody on Facebook.
Thank you.
See ya.